It's been said it's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters. This is particularly true when what happens to you involves money and debt. Let's have ourselves a pocket sized pep talk because I've got a guest who's been there, tunneled out, and coaches others on how to do the same.
A Pocket Sized Pep Talk, the podcast that can help energize your business and your life with a quick, inspiring message. Now, here's your host, Rob Jollis.
Today's guest, Chris Felton, is a founder and principal of his own financial services business where he leads and trains over 220 agents with over, get this, 30,000 clients. He's a top 50 earner in his company out of 45,000 plus agents and is a national speaker and trainer for his firm. He's been featured in Forbes, Fortune, Market Watch, NASDAQ.com. I'm getting tired. Yahoo, Finance, U.S. News, World Report. But this is the best part. He is the co-author of Couples Money, a book which he wrote with his wife, Marlo. And I want to hear a little bit more about that, folks. We got a good one for today's show. Chris, welcome aboard.
Rob, great being here. Excited to be visiting with you.
Yeah. Well, I'm chomping at the bit because I got to get at the co-writing of Couples Money real fast. And I'm only getting at it because as a fellow author, my wife, I love my wife. She's a wonderful wife, but we don't co-write. How did you pull that off?
Yeah, well, I mean, we'll maybe get my story after this, but it was if it wasn't for her, it would still be trapped in my computer. Ooh. So the wife got the last. I mean, it was our combined idea, and it was hatched out of a pretty bad situation, but we had a major turnaround, and then we wanted to share it with the planet because of our experience, but. She kind of drove the bus and said, "You do this," and I said, "Yes, dear." And we wrote it, but yeah, we got it done, and it's written in his perspective, her perspective, so it's pretty interesting. We have a topic, and then we split the chapters up between her thoughts on things and my thoughts on things. So pretty unique.
I believe me, I'm getting to the story right now, but I want to tell you something. I just want to put a stop sign up and say that's really unique, and I find that valuable because. Like I said, I'm a business writer. I'm in the business industry. I market business books. I speak on marketing books. And that's a very unique element that I think most people don't really take into account is sort of getting the two different perspectives because, way back, men are from Mars and women are from Venus and Dr. Gray's work, we do not process the information the same way. So I think it's really cool. Not only did you co-write it, but there's those two voices remain. We can find the two voices as we read. Really, I'm going to grab a copy and I'm going to tell you something. And for anybody listening, grab a copy, that's your first job. But your second job, and I'm going to say this for Chris, the kindest thing you can do for an author is review the book once you've gotten a copy. It's a really nice thing to do. It really matters in terms of how our books do. So if you're feeling nice, if you start getting that book and you like it, don't sit on your hands. 2 sentences, 3 sentences, but review the book. All right, Chris, there's a story here. Tell me that story.
Yeah, so I'm in Castle Pines Village, Colorado. I grew up in Loveland, which is about 60 miles north of Denver. Had 2 amazing parents that probably they told me what your parents probably told you, right, Rob? Go to school, get good grades, get a good job, turn 65, everything's going to be okay, play it safe. Obviously, we know that fails 96% of the time. I went to Colorado State University, got an accounting degree. I moved down to Denver in 93. I call myself a recovered CPA and spent 7 years with the largest accounting firm in the world at that time, Arthur Andersen, and was climbing the corporate ladder, got fed up, wanted to become an entrepreneur, and then launched my financial services business kind of part-time in 1999. So I'm doing 70-hour, 80-hour week CPA work. I'm doing this part-time. I launched it full-time February 2000. I go through a very painful and expensive divorce. My wife moves. My wife at that time moved to the other side of the country with my little kids who were months old and 3 years old. And I met my second and last wife, Marlo, and she got recruited into our business. It wasn't too long after that. We were dating. We were hot and heavy, and she, it was obvious we were meant to be together. And I was successful in my firm. I was getting a lot of trophies and a lot of recognition, a lot of stage time speaking. So it looked like I had it all together, Rob. But what she did not know is I had accumulated about $250,000 of credit card debt because I had to pay my ex half my business value, and I didn't have any money. I signed a lease. I'm an entrepreneur. I'm on the lease, and my agents rent from me. They weren't paying. We're about ready to enter the Great Recession. I'm a CPA. I'm a financial advisor. We're leaking $3,000 or $4,000 a month negative. Keeping this from her, keeping our money separate, and kind of at my wit's end, and working 90 hours a week somehow isn't getting it done. So I started really getting heavy into personal growth and development. Marlo and I are living in central Denver. It's February. Someone told me to start meditating. And so I went out in our garage in a parka, sitting in my car, freezing my ass off, meditating, looking for inspiration. And up to that point, my wife was like, what's going on with us financially? What's happening? I want to manage the money. And I would become a self-righteous male, which never works if you've ever tried to do that with your woman. And I'm like, well, I'm an advisor and I'm a CPA and I got it under control and all that. But she was kind of fighting me on it. And I sat there, Rob, and it was one of the, intuition is massively important to create wealth in your life, and people do not trust intuitive guidance at all. And you're a couple seconds away from a quantum leap if you listen to it. And so literally God spoke to me and said, let her do it. And I didn't understand, Mel Robbins is out there talking about 5-second rules and all sorts of cool things that she does. I didn't understand 5-second rules. And if you wait 5 seconds, your ego starts talking you out of doing the thing that you need to do. But for whatever reason, I got up out of the car, I walked in, looked to my wife, and I said, hey, it's yours. I'm going to hand the reins over to you. You're the CFO now. So went through that process. And then about a week later, I'm in the kitchen. And have you ever had that just feeling that your spouse was just staring you down, like the presence? Have you ever?
Oh yeah, no, I'm 37 years married. I felt the gaze before.
The gaze, the presence, right? And I look up, and her face, Rob, is like I've never seen that face again. I never want to see it again. It was like frustration, anger, bewilderment, like questioning why she married me. She's holding the checkbook, she's holding the bank statements, and she's just like, "What did you do? Do you know what's going on?" And I'm like, well, and so so we had a meeting. I call it the Come to Marlo meeting, which was, awesome. And she introduced I called a 4-letter word, a budget, to me. And I didn't get it, dude. I didn't get it. And, one of my favorite quotes is optimism and delusion sleep in the same bed together. And guys have a tendency to go, well, no, don't look here. Look over here. Look what's coming. This is coming. We ended the meeting. I still didn't get it. And so fast forward, now we're living in a rented house in South Denver, and I'm running out of money. And I have to pay my ex-wife $5,200 at the beginning of each month, alimony, child support. I didn't have it. We didn't get our update from the company. We didn't get paid. So out of money, out of debt, out of room. My wife had good money habits. She had money saved. So you're into sales, right? So the ultimate sales job ever, Rob, is I had to go home and convince my wife to give me the money to pay my ex-wife.
Wow.
How do you
You
think
are a
that,
salesman.
how do you think that went?
Yeah.
Anyway, so volcanic Marlo, she's about 5'1", not good. And literally all this time of resentment, she just exploded. We call it the purse throwing incident. And she tossed her purse, broke some stuff, cussed me out, called me everything on the planet. And then I just said, well, why are we still married? And that shut everything up. And she went upstairs, and it was the bottoming out of my life, but it was an awakening for me. And it was, wherever I've had a money problem in my life, I've always been there.
Yeah. Wow.
And I was the common denominator of all my problems. And it was really, Rob, it was the first time in my life I took 100% responsibility, and it hit me as clear as day. I created the divorce. I created all the disaster financially. I created, we can get into to the deeper part of that. But basically the next day we got together. She said, we're not declaring bankruptcy. We're not getting divorced. I'm like, I've made the decision. I'm going to figure this out. I am going to figure out what in my mind continues to create disasters, because dad was broke, mom was broke, grandma was broke, grandpa was broke, great grandma, just poverty. And even though I was a CPA and financial advisor, I had those poverty beliefs. Right. And so I went to work. I went all in. I treated this money mindset thing like an Olympic athlete would treat their sport, all in. And then she flew around the country and found, I call world-class financially independent couples that grew it together. Not only did they have wealth, they had great relationships. They had a incredible marriage, a spiritual life, and she figured out what they did. I worked on my internal game, and what's happened in the last 10 years is it's jaw-dropping.
All right. Hold on there. Hold on.
Yeah.
I want to hear the jaw-dropping part, but we got to unpack a little bit of what we just heard.
Okay. All right.
That's some story.
Yeah.
And I'm just a couple things, because if I'm in my car right now, a lot just happened. And so I want to pull a couple of thoughts. First of all, it's a really interesting piece. As a writer, you've inspired me to want to write about something that you inferred. And that is that many of us, including me, are card carrying optimists. I'm an optimistic guy. I really do believe tomorrow will be better. And I'm proud of it. I wear it like a badge. And yet, in a sense, one of the issues in play was, it sounds like you were on Optimist Island and Marlo was on Real World Island. And so in a sense, what happens is I guess we have to look in the mirror and realize that being an optimist is wonderful, but it's dangerous too. And in this case, if I've got it right, in a sense, I don't think you were fooling yourself. I think I probably could have put a lie detector on you. You may have passed. The optimist in you said, I'll figure it out. I'll get through it. And Marlo, you talk about the need for opposites attracting. Marlo, being in a sense your opposite, said, that's all well and good. And honey, I love you because you're an optimist, but we got work to do, real world work. And there's a message there, because I think we just give optimists like me, like you, in a sense, a free pass. We get patted on the back and say, we need more guys like you. Well, I'm not going to write this book, but I've always wanted to write the book about relationships. I only have like four sentences, but it was going to be titled, not only do opposites attract, they must attract. Because when you find somebody just like you, there's no growth. You can't evolve. And if you look at the couples that really make it, listen, morally, you're the same. You look at things from a moral standpoint the same way. In other words, one steals, one doesn't steal. No, that's not what we're saying. But she's realistic. She's looking at things with a different set of glasses. And that's why your relationship, I believe, not only survived, but saved the both of you in a sense. So did I get that right?
Yeah. I mean, it's just, optimism is awesome, but part of my transformation was that we hired a coach for 4 years,
Right.
and he said, Chris, you're really good. You're great at goal setting. You're horrible at goal achieving.
Okay. Yeah.
And it was the fact that I was optimistic, but I had zero relationship with results.
Right.
Zero relationship with
And Chris,
results.
did you say that also that you sort of have a family history of that, in a sense, of family members, parents, perhaps, and that have struggled in a similar way, or did I get that wrong?
Yeah, no, I mean it's all my family. I mean my dad's the best sales guy I've ever seen. His capacity to connect and build rapport, and I mean it was unbelievable. But he was the king of self-sabotage.
Right.
and and he was he had ideas of grandeur, but he didn't have the oomph behind it, or he didn't have the capacity to see that just as stuff would get tough, he would pull back, change direction, go run for the shiny thing. I mean, I know why God chose me as his dad,
Right.
because I'm a persistent guy.
Right.
But we both were equal in, one day, this is a dangerous mind virus, is one day it's going to happen.
Right. Right.
And it's the one that most, I coach a lot of entrepreneurs, but it's the one that most entrepreneurs have, is one day it's going to happen. And my coach is like, why is it not happening now? Because like I said, you do not have what's called objective reality and the capacity to look at your results. Because Rob, most people don't want to look at their results because they don't want to feel bad about themselves. And so if you don't want to feel bad about yourself, then you don't want to look at your results. So you're never going to look at your results because you don't want to feel bad about yourself. And the world class have the capacity to look at their results and not have their identity go in the toilet,
Yeah.
and be able to say, hey, I'm delivering or I'm not delivering. And what do I need to do to shift, course correct? Those are all the things that I apply and teach people as well.
Okay. Did you know? I know you noticed his habits, and a great salesperson, but changing direction. Were you consciously aware growing up that there were any financial struggles that your dad was having, your family was having?
Oh yeah. Just as he would, be ready to have a breakthrough, he would attract a situation that would knock him down.
Right.
He
Okay.
would, he lent money to our sleazy brother-in-law who, you know, disappeared in the middle of the night.
No names, please. No names.
Yeah. Yeah, he would just do stuff like that.
Yeah.
He
Yeah.
would get rocking and rolling. But yeah, I mean, he had self-sabotaging
You know why I asked
capacity.
it, Chris, and it's a theory that you just blew up, but thanks for playing. And the theory is this for me. Um, my dad was a salesman and had good years and not so good years, but I knew somebody very close, and I'm going to keep the relationship out of it. I knew somebody very close, almost intimately, who struggled financially and was older than me by a considerable margin, and it shook me so much that I was the guy that I was blessed. I got that lesson by watching that experience. And so I never flew higher as an entrepreneur, even. I've never flown higher than I could fall because, in a sense, I felt like I lived that
Yeah.
with that other individual. And that's why I was asking the question. One other thing, and I'll move off this. I gave a presentation to a bunch of job seekers once called Desire versus Technique. And I had them in a participant guide on an actual sheet say, on a scale of 1 to 10, how badly do you want this next job? 10, and how important? 10, and across the board. And then I followed it with, now, on a scale of 1 to 10, from a technique, a repeatable, predictable process that you are adhering to and measuring, on a scale of 1 to 10, how you doing on that one? 4, 5. And so I referred to the presentation as desire versus technique, which is, you can want it all you want. You still have to follow, and it's not as sexy, these process behaviors that get you to that goal. So it's a shame, because when we were kids, wanting it seem to carry the day. That guy, see that guy, Chris? I want him on my team because that guy wants to win. Well, good. But you realize as you get older, wanting to win is nice. Practicing and doing these process behaviors help you to win. And but anyway, that's what I'm sort of extracting as I listen to you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, cool. All right. So you mentioned that you do some coaching. Tell me about that a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, I do. I teach. People how money works, and there's obviously the how tos of it. And one of my favorite books I always reference is if how tos were enough, we'd all be rich, skinny, and happy. So, um, so I so I coach entrepreneurs, how to get a business going. I coach clients how money works. But really it's this conversation, Rob, where it's coaching, teaching, training, mentoring people that, and it's the work I did is, we have 3, 4, 5 things rolling around in our brain at an unconscious level that's really creating our whole lives. And I'm a big fan of the formula, me plus a thought equals a result. And it's the work I had to do. And so one of the things that I coach, teach, train, and mentor people on is what are the belief systems that are creating the result, helping them understand it. But really it's what my coach taught me is, what do you want? And, where's your point A? Where's your point B? And, how are you going to hit that?
Yeah.
And so most people, they set goals in January and they don't, like you're talking about, they don't have the strategies, tactics, and processes, and they don't measure it every week. And so what he taught me how to do was, we took our income up 5 times in that span of time, but we had to double it just to get back to even.
Right.
So he got me dialed into what we really wanted, what the number one goal was, what were the reasons behind it, what was the desire, what was the compelling emotional reasons. But he was able, Rob, to back me up and get me super focused on the execution that I had to do this week to move closer. And then ultimately the 52 course corrections during a year that transform my life, not the 25 course corrections once a year that nobody follows through with. So
right.
So that's the stuff I coach and teach, and what do you want? Why do you want it? And I can coach you on how to get there. But part of it is I got to help them unpack how they're getting in their own way.
Yeah. And what's interesting about you as a coach is that you've lived the struggles that we have. It's it'd be a shame for me to come to you and bare my soul and tell you, because money is a serious matter. There's a bulletin, and tell you, I have fear. It's emotional for me. And for you to say, well, I've never experienced myself, but I've read about it and it sounds like it's a pretty tough thing. The fact that you've lived it, to me, would make you a natural to not only tactically be able to assist me as a client, but emotionally be able to understand me as a client. So let's stay there for a second. I'll coach me for a moment. I'm walking in. What do I, get? I got accountability from you. Let me kind of repeat. Let me see if I've learned anything so far. I got to be accountable. I got to break this up into small pieces and not say my goal is to hit the ball 300 yards. I'll see you in a year and we'll see where it's going. There's a lot to that swing. There's a lot of skill practice, but take it a step further. How else would you coach a person like me?
Yeah, I mean, so one of my favorite quotes is a life spent seeking comfort results in an entirely uncomfortable existence.
Yeah.
So obviously I need to, first and foremost, my mentors, I've been super blessed to have crazy successful people. And every time we work together, it's okay, what is the number one goal? And if I'm coaching you, I'm like, okay, how do you define financial freedom? What does that even look like?
Right.
Numerically, is it an income? Is it a recurring revenue? Is it a size of a business? Is it, our first step of hitting that was making sure our recurring revenue was greater than our bills. So the reason why 96% of people don't get financial independence, they can't even define it.
Right.
And so how are we even going to measure that?
Right.
And for someone that's kind of starting from scratch, that financial independence doesn't even look, it's just way too far out there. I was challenged to get, $100,000 saved, and we had $0, right? So what my coach did for me was what I do for other people is, okay, let's say that's the goal. And why is it important? So when I show up to my mentoring sessions, I have to have 10 reasons why, not 8, not 9, 10. And where I want to go now, which part of it is I want to impact 10 million plus people in a positive way before I leave this planet, which is why I'm doing these podcasts, is there's a whole list, Rob, that I look at every single day of the reasons why, because just like anybody else, it's easy to fall back in your comfort zone.
Right.
It's especially if you've had some success. And you're either growing or dying. So I need to really know why, and I need to do a real deep dive on why does it matter first. And most coaches don't go there. They go right to strategies, tactics, and processes. And, it's kind of like having a Ferrari without any gas in it. The car is just not going to go.
Yeah, no, it sounds so basic, but and I wasn't trying to throw a curveball at you, but as you started answering, I went, "Ooh, it's almost a trick question. Let's see how he does with it." Because what you just articulated, which is what I would want to hear, is, "Sorry, Rob, the answer isn't 7. It's the answer is I need to understand. I need to ask questions that my person who I'm coaching has never asked themselves or doesn't want to ask themselves, perhaps. And one size doesn't fit all." So there's that phase of it. So and sorry to disappoint everybody who's listening, but there really isn't a 2-word answer. But I'll give you you're giving me a couple quotes. I'll throw one back at you that I like, which is, and it involves you because you're following a process in a sense. And I always tell my clients, when you have a process, you have a way of measuring what you're doing, and when you can measure it, you can fix it. And most of us really are nowhere near a process, and yet we're trying to fix it. So I like that I even like. Well, I'm glad my wife is downstairs. I've been called a little bit kind of a processaholic. I really like to stick to my process, not almost stick to it. I love the fact that you and I. It's too bad you're not in town. We enjoy a cup of coffee with you because I'm the same way. If I say 10, I don't want 11 either. I want 10. I don't want 8. I don't want 6. Even as a professional speaker, you give me an hour to speak, I actually will not wrap up in 58 minutes. It's not how it works.
Yep.
And I won't go an hour and 1 either. I'll bring that
Yep.
ship in for a landing right on that tarmac, right at 60. And believe me, I'm tracking it. I don't need a clock for you. But that's what a pro does, in my opinion. And so I really appreciate the fact that you have processes in place and you're going to stick with those processes. And boy, do we, your clients and customers need them. Okay, last question, and I'll let you go. Give me a couple things, maybe just 1 or 2, that people believe about money. Kind of a it's sort of a natural thought that most of us would have that in fact doesn't really serve us in any way. So it's what I would call it, a good old unconscious incompetency. We don't even know that we don't know. Just give me no more than 2.
Hard to make, hard to keep. It's hard to make, it's hard to keep. I mean, there's a bunch, but money won't make me happy. I mean, I had a ton. The last one I would tell you is I must go through it's called a hero's journey. I must go through this journey of being Rocky Balboa and go through hell to prove my worthiness that I'm okay to be wealthy. That's a big one. That was my dad. I had that one for ever.
Well, you got mentioned that was that's what you saw. You lived that in a sense.
Yeah. Well, and there's no, you don't get on Oprah's couch without a good story. Right. And so sometimes, and I did it, I created hurdles and stuff that I must overcome in order to have a good story. And a lot of it was completely unnecessary. So I think the hard part is the one that cripples the 96%. Not that you don't have to go through challenges and obstacles. It's just we as humans have a tendency to create more than we really need.
Yeah. In 1981, my first sales job, I learned a script at New York Life. It was called The 100-Man Story. And it was all about what happens to 100 people. Remember, it was 1981, folks. It was called 100-Man. But what happens and how, this is how many don't make it, and this is how many do, and where they are. And the punchline was, these people didn't plan to fail. They failed to plan. And I learned it like an actor. And the only other thing I'll tell you, and I wrote this in one of my books, and we share this as well, is I was always frustrated with The Wizard of Oz. Now, stay with me. I'll do this quickly, but I'll tell you why. Because Dorothy and her friends were put through unbelievable crisis. Okay. I mean, monkeys attacking them, witches on their case. And I remember at 5 years old, when we finally got to Oz and we killed the witch and everything happened, and the good witch delivers the news that, well, you could have gone anytime you want. I just didn't think you'd believe me. I remember at 5 going, well, try me. Why did I have to go through all of that? Mm-hmm. I understand the other argument, which is, and our parents told us, I could have told you, but you wouldn't believe me. My new rule, and when I raise my kids, is, you know what, I am going to tell you. And then you make a choice to believe me or not. But I'm with you. I'm not subscribing to this. No, some things you have to learn the hard way. I will hope that I'm skilled enough as a salesperson to convince you and make this idea your idea. Maybe we ought to put more onus on ourselves as salespeople. And I mean that for parents as well. But I just don't think we have to go through things because that's the way the world works. You must live these. And I really appreciate your words today, because I think you've helped a lot of people through your story and through some of your ideas here that do just that we don't really have to go through that level of pain. But I will tell you this, we do not need coaches in this world. We do need people who are skilled, and not every coach, they're not all created equal. So I like the fact, I want my coach to have lived what I'm living through. And that appears to be you. How do people get a hold of you, Chris?
Yeah. So couplesmoney.com, we have, I have a lot of talks, a lot of keynote talks. I'm available to do a keynote. Obviously it's this, and it is about, this is how bad it was. This is what we did. And then here's where we showed up. So it's the feedback I always get is relatable, and that's powerful for people. So couplesmoney.com, and then in our store there, you'll see a complimentary coaching session that we're doing. So that's a way to find me. I'm on Instagram at CF_E2E, CF_E2E, Twitter at CL Felton, and then somebody wanted to email me directly, they can, chris.felton@wealthwave.com. So those are excellent ways that people can find us. Yeah.
And don't forget, we can also find him on Amazon, because he's got a book there that we're all going to be buying, and we're writing reviews. You hear me? We're writing reviews. Great having you on the show. Really enjoyed it. And appreciate all your thoughts. And folks, I'll do it again as well as I can next time. Until then, stay safe.
Thanks so much for listening. If you enjoyed today's show, please rate and recommend it on iTunes, Outcast, or wherever you get your podcasts. You can also get more information on this show and Rob at jollis.com.